Hey guys, Adam, CarStudio72 here at the KCE, the Car Center of Excellence, which is just my garage, here with my 2018 Golf Sportwagen. And haven't made any videos in a while about upgrades because I haven't really done a whole lot this year, but I kind of did one kind of series of them at once back in the summer. And so I haven't really made a video about it. I've spent substantial time on these modifications, including the track. So I thought it'd be a good time to go ahead and make a video about it, talk about the modifications and what they did. Primarily, they were chassis and suspension modifications. Namely, up front, I did I dropped the subframe, or had the shop drop the subframe to do Superpro aluminum lower control arms that add both caster and some negative camber. I had the Eurosport street camber kit installed on top of my struts. Because the subframe was out, I did a Tyrolsport deadset kit to lock that subframe in. And I did an H&R front sway bar, 27 mil to complement the 25 mil H&R rear sway bar. And then I tossed in some 034 Motorsport rear subframe inserts. I think that's it. So I'll walk you through those. Oh, and I've added another set of tires and wheels for track use or maybe really aggressive street use. So walk you through all the mods. All right, guys, let's start with tires. So at this point, I'm deep in this. I have actually 3 sets of wheels and tires. So I have the APR black Flowform wheels with some Michelin Pilot Sport all-season 4s. These are 18 8.5 ET45 wheels with the 235 40 18 Michelin Pilot Sport all seasons. So these are basically kind of like my fall through spring tires. They're great on the street and they actually handle really well. And contrary to what you often hear about all seasons, they work fine for the light snow here in the Richmond, Virginia area. And they handle is really not that far off of a set of summer street tires, in my opinion. Next, I have these bronze Apex Race Parts SM10s. They're 18 8.5 ET43, and on those I have Continental Extreme Contact Sport summer tires. I actually bought these used from another YouTuber, Last Human's Garage. They were, I don't know, 7 or 8 30-second worn, which is perfect. They're probably almost down to 4 at this point, so I'll get a little bit more time out of them. But these are fantastic street tires. So they definitely handle more sharply than the all seasons, but and they're nice and quiet. They work in the rain. But, you know, they do add more performance and dry grip. I used these on the Tail of the Dragon earlier this year, and I was really, really impressed. 235 40 18 tires. And then my most recent set is a set of these Apex Race Parts. I want to say they're the VS-5 RS. They're forged, so they're really light. These weigh about 17 pounds a piece. They are 17 by 9 ET42 in the anthracite color. And on these, I have a set of what are often referred to as 200 treadwear. So they're really just an extreme summer tire, street tire. They're just softer than the Continentals, which are like a 300 treadwear, and then the Michelins are like a 500 treadwear. So they're softer, they wear faster, but they have much more dry grip. These are actually 255 40 17s on a 17.9. So this is a really wide, meaty setup for the track. And I've used these just a few weeks ago at VIR, and I was really impressed. These tires are Accelera 651 Sport. These are purchased at TireStreets.com. These were $535 delivered. It is probably the cheapest 200 treadwear tire you can buy. They're made in Indonesia. For a noob like me, they work just fine. I had a great time, and I saved destroying my street tires, which was a benefit. All right, hopefully we can see this with the lighting I've tried to rig up, but here's some of the modifications up on that front end and chassis. And so back here, we can see that Superpro lower control arm. It has a polyurethane bushing in the front, and you can't really see it, and in the back, which firm up things noticeably on the street. 27 mil H&R front sway bar with adjustable 034 end links, because once you start modifying these sway bars and lowering your car, oftentimes you want an adjustable end link to be able to set the car to not have any preload on that sway bar. The deadset kit you can't see. It's basically under here somewhere. Yeah, you might be able to see it. There's collars. That focus. There's some collars in here that basically lock the subframe in. so that when under high stress driving, braking, the subframe won't shift. It doesn't increase any of the noise, vibration, or harshness, but it does keep things locked in for the alignment. Now, up top, on the top of this B8 strut and H&R Sport spring is a mount, which again, I don't think you can probably see, but their Eurosport Street camber kit, which gives you a little bit of negative camber. Effectively, it uses the stock camber mount, or the stock strut mount that is rubber, so you don't get all the harshness of metal camber mounts. But it basically, if you look at the front of the car, so the strut is coming up through the mount, it's a puck that offsets the top of the mount, which gives you a little bit of negative camber. So when you combine those mounts and those lower control arms that add some negative camber and caster, and we'll talk about that in a minute, I'm at -2 degrees camber, which is really great because instead of the tire here being no camber, and so when you go through a turn, you basically are eating up the outer edge and not getting a good footprint. You start with the tire slightly, see if I can do it, slightly inward. And so when you go through a turn, now the tire is effectively straight up and down. Now, at -2, you're not chewing up your tires. But if you start increasing the camber much more than that, you can start potentially wearing the tire unevenly. Now, caster is interesting. Caster is that angle of that strut. So that strut is angled or pushing the center of the axle forward. So the lower control arms add about a degree of positive caster. And so what that's doing is sitting the wheel ever so slightly more forward, but it's at an angle. And the best way to think about what caster does, think about a chopper motorcycle. That has a lot of caster. That wheel is sitting way raked out in front. And so, when you turn that wheel, your handlebars on that bike, when you lean and turn, you have a lot of negative camber. And so adding more caster helps give you more camber when you're turning, if that makes sense. And all of that basically helps the car turn better. All right, guys, I'm back here under the rear of my wagon, and we're looking at the driver's side. That's the H&R Sport spring, the Bilstein B8, and this thing, which is what I want to talk about, which is the 034 rear subframe insert. And what that really does is the subframe is mounted on these bushings that are rubber with gaps in them. And so this just has two little wings that slide up inside of the gaps. And so it reduces movement of your rear subframe. There's 4 of them. There's one forward of the spring and strut. It acts much like a dog bone insert. Most people know what that is on this platform. So yeah, that's the small inserts. Are easy to install. So there you have it. Tried to kind of walk through the basics of these chassis and suspension modifications, but the bottom line is this car handles fantastic. It really does corner and drive well. The turn in with that extra camber and caster is noticeable. I would say the NVH, noise, vibration, harshness, is increased. I mean, it kind of has to be. The more stuff you put in and stop moving things in the car, well, the more it's going to vibrate. I wouldn't say it's outrageous. I can take my kids and wife in this car and nobody is complaining about it. I think the lower control arm bushings probably make the biggest difference in that regard. And actually, I totally just remembered the other thing I did when the subframe was out was I did the full dog bone deal. So 034 upper insert, lower insert, upper puck, which is the rubber bushing itself, which is a higher density that they make. So upper puck, lower puck, that's their street density, they call it. And the actual arm itself, the dog bone, the mount itself, which has got a like a spherical bearing and it's billet. So I completely locked down the engine movement, which complements the 034 street density mounts I have for the DSG and the engine. So again, the car's really locked down. It certainly has more NVH. I don't think it's obnoxious, but it's there. But all of that stuff really kind of complemented the power modifications I've had, the suspension, the springs, and the dampers, and the rear sway bar. So I'm really happy with my car at this point. There's probably not a whole lot I would do else to it. I mean, maybe coilovers at some point to play with suspension because I'm kind of nerdy that way. But I mean, the H&Rs and the B8s work really pretty good. They're soft, softer for a suspension setup, and so the ride is pretty decent. And other than that, I mean, the car's pretty good.